They told him he'd never make it. He proved them right, then wrong. He had everything the world told him success looks like. The hustle, the 5 a.m. alarms, the calendar blocked out in 15-minute slots. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't undisciplined. He was, by every visible metric, doing everything right. But nothing was working. And the terrifying thing? He couldn't figure out why. What if the problem wasn't his effort, but the way he understood time itself? There's a story we've all been sold. Work harder than everyone else. Move faster. Stay hungry. And eventually, inevitably, the world will reward you. It's not a bad philosophy, but it's incomplete. And for a lot of people, that missing piece is quietly destroying them. Marcus was 26 when he started believing the hustle was a religion. He'd read every book, followed every framework, optimized every hour. He built a financial consulting practice from nothing, cold calls, late nights, weekends sacrificed. He moved fast, closed fast, chased fast. And for a while, it worked. Until the day his biggest client looked him in the eye across a boardroom table and said, "I trust your numbers. I just don't trust your judgment." Marcus didn't sleep that night. Not because the client was wrong, but because somewhere, in the part of himself he'd been too busy to listen to, he already knew. Here's what nobody tells you about speed. When you move fast enough, you stop being able to feel the difference between progress and motion. They feel identical from the inside. The calendar fills. The emails go out. The meetings stack. You're in motion constantly, which means you never have to sit with the question that actually matters. Is this going anywhere? Marcus had motion. What he didn't have was direction. And the gap between those two things had been growing for 3 years without him noticing. He started seeing it in the small things first. Proposals he sent without rereading. Clients he onboarded because the revenue looked right, not because the fit was. Recommendations he gave with confidence that quietly cracked under scrutiny a quarter later. He wasn't careless. He was moving too fast to be careful. And then one afternoon, his mentor, a quiet, slightly infuriating man named Dr. Ehrlich, who had built one of the most respected investment firms in the Midwest over 30 years, said something Marcus couldn't shake. "The highest performing investors I know have one thing in common. They're incredibly comfortable doing nothing." Marcus almost laughed. Nothing? Dr. Ehrlich wasn't done. Not laziness. Not avoidance. Intentional stillness. The patience to let a thesis develop. To let a market reveal itself. To not confuse activity with progress. Marcus drove home that night, turning those words over. He didn't understand them yet, but something in him knew they mattered. The breaking point didn't look dramatic. It rarely does. It was a Tuesday. Marcus had just lost his 3rd client in 6 weeks. Each one, in their exit conversation, said some variation of the same thing. "You're sharp, but I feel like you're always half a step ahead of the conversation instead of in it." He sat in his car in a parking garage for 40 minutes. Not thinking, not strategizing, just sitting with the weight of what he'd been refusing to acknowledge. He'd been optimizing for the appearance of competence, for the signals that looked like mastery, the rapid responses, the confident projections, the packed schedule that proved he was important and in demand. But real competence doesn't look busy. Real competence looks unhurried. And Marcus had confused the performance of success with the practice of it. That's the fracture point. Not when things go wrong. When you finally stop explaining away why they keep going wrong. The decision Marcus made next is one that looks, on the surface, like giving up. He cleared his schedule. Not everything, but he stripped away the noise. The networking events he attended to be seen. The calls he took to seem accessible. The opportunities he chased because saying no felt like fear. And in the space that opened up, something strange happened. He started thinking differently. Not faster, deeper. He started sitting with a client's problem for 2 hours before forming a recommendation. Started asking the question that always felt too slow. What am I missing here? Started building relationships that didn't have an immediate transaction at the end of them. The results didn't come immediately. That's the part no one tells you. When you shift from speed to depth, there's a period where you feel like you're falling behind, where the people still moving fast are visibly ahead of you. But here's what Marcus noticed at the end of that first year. The clients he kept were different. They referred people. They trusted his judgment before he even gave it. They weren't clients in the transactional sense anymore. They were partners. And the work he produced from stillness? It was something he was actually proud of. This isn't just a philosophy. There's something real happening psychologically when you stop forcing outcomes. When your nervous system is in a constant state of urgency, your brain defaults to pattern matching. It uses shortcuts. It reaches for what worked before because there isn't time to think creatively. But when you slow down deliberately, something different activates. Your brain starts connecting things that seem unrelated. Insights arrive sideways, from unexpected angles. You start noticing what you were missing when you were too busy to notice anything. Psychologists call this the difference between exploitative thinking, mining what you already know, and exploratory thinking. Exploratory thinking requires one thing above all else: time. Unstructured, unoptimized, unbilled time. The most sophisticated thinkers, doctors, architects, investors, writers, scientists, they don't actually work faster than average. They simply tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty longer than most people are willing to. They let problems breathe. And breathing takes time. Marcus started understanding this not as a luxury, but as a discipline. The hardest discipline he'd ever practiced. Because every instinct he'd built told him that stillness was waste. Learning to override that took months. 18 months after that parking garage Tuesday, Marcus got a phone call. It was from a family office, the kind of client that doesn't come from cold outreach. They come from reputation. From someone who trusted you saying your name in a room where your name has never been said before. They'd heard he was different, that he actually listened, that he asked questions that made people uncomfortable in the best way, that he wasn't trying to close, he was trying to understand. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Marcus didn't pitch once. He asked questions. He sat with silence after they answered. He said, "I'm not sure yet," for times, which terrified him and apparently impressed them enormously. They signed with him 2 weeks later. Not because he was the fastest. Not because he'd impressed them with his efficiency. Because they trusted that he'd take his time. And that's when Marcus understood something that changed how he saw everything. The world doesn't actually reward speed. It rewards trust. And trust is built slowly, almost impossibly slowly. One conversation, one kept promise, one, "I don't know yet, but I'll find out" at a time. Speed is a performance. Depth is the actual product. So here's the thing I want you to sit with. You might be working incredibly hard right now. You might be showing up every day, giving it everything, and still feeling like the results are somewhere past the horizon. And the voice that haunts you is, what if I'm just not good enough? I want to propose a different question. What if you're trying to harvest something you haven't finished growing yet? There's a particular kind of suffering that comes from pulling something out of the ground before it's ready. You ruin the thing. You get nothing. And then you assume the seed was bad. But the seed was fine. The timing was wrong. The hardest part of depth, of real, patient, purposeful work, isn't the work itself. It's enduring the silence between the effort and the evidence. It's watching other people get applauded for visible motion while you're doing invisible foundation work. It's sitting with uncertainty long enough for something real to emerge. That's not failure. That's the process. Marcus didn't become the most successful consultant in his city. That's not the story. He became the most trusted one. And over time, those turn out to be the same thing. His practice is quieter now than it was at his busiest. He takes fewer clients, spends longer with each one. His calendar has blank spaces in it that used to terrify him. Now they feel like room to think. People ask him sometimes what his secret is. He usually pauses longer than the question seems to require. And then he says something that sounds simple and isn't. I stopped trying to win the day. I started trying to earn the decade. The thing about patience, real patience, not passive waiting but active, disciplined, intentional depth, is that it doesn't announce itself. You won't feel it working. You won't see the return until suddenly it's unmistakable. The roots that go deepest don't show above the ground. But when the storm comes, and it always comes, you're the only one still standing. If you're still in the quiet season, if the evidence hasn't caught up with your effort yet, stay. Not because waiting is comfortable, but because what you're building beneath the surface is the only thing that was ever going to last. Don't let anyone rush you into shallow.